Hey, so welcome to Shiloh Qahal. Today is the first of it's 1/4/2005, and that's
25.
2025. And let's take a moment to remember why it is that we gather here on Shabbat. Number one, to build up our knowledge, our understanding, and belief, and to encourage successful demonstration of our belief through obedience. To remember that we are the chosen and the saved. The entire world is under the dominion of Satan. It is fallen, deceived, judged, and destined for destruction at the coming day of Yahweh. But he saves and delivers those who choose and believe him, believers, the spiritual seed of Abraham, Israel. As believers, we participate in the covenants and the promises Yahweh has made to his chosen people, including eternal or everlasting high and life, which is life through resurrection, an eternal home in the promised land where he abides with us, a Mashiach, our Savior, our Kohen HaKadosh, HaKadal, which is the high priest, our sovereign, which is the king, and a future with Elohim without separation, where we are his people and he is our Elohim, where he is our father and we are his children. And then our responsibility as we wait for the fulfillment of these promises is to seek him and believe him. We must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. We must believe and follow, and belief incorporates faithful obedience. We meet at appointed times according to his instruction to learn of him and of his ways. And we seek to make this saying true of us. But if anyone loves Elohim, this one is known by him. 1 Corinthians 8:3. So let's share together in the Lord's Prayer. We'll all say it together here. If you can see it on the screen there, Chloe. Ready?
Wait,
Yahuwah,
which? Oh, sorry.
Matthew 6:19, 9-13. Can you see it there?
Yeah. Numbers, you said?
Matthew 6, 9 through
Oh,
13.
oh yes, I do. Okay.
Okay. Yahuwah, Father in heaven,
Heaven,
sanctified in
sanctified in
Kodesh be your
Kodesh.
name.
Name.
May your
May your
kingdom come
kingdom come
and your will be
and your
done
will be
on
done
earth as it
as it
is
is
in the
in the
Shemayim.
Shabbat.
Give us
Today,
today our daily bread. Forgive us our
give us
wrongs as we forgive
as
those who
forgive
have
those
wronged
who have
us.
wronged us.
And do
And
not
do
lead us
not
into
lead us
trials
into
or
trials or
temptations,
temptations,
but
but
deliver
deliver
us from
us
wickedness
from
and
evil.
evil. For yours is the
For yours
kingdom,
is
the power,
the
and the
power
kabod.
and the
Amen.
kabod. Amen.
Okay. So, are you still there, Chloe?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you see me? Or
I think the kitties.
Kitty. I think we saw the kitty. All right. So we are in our times of reading here, and we're in the old writings, and we are up to chronologically Genesis chapter 8.
We'll read 8 through 11. Do you want to read, Chloe?
sure.
Give me
I
a
am
second.
a page away. Ah. Oh,
Go to Genesis chapter 8. Let me get there too. Mm,
okay.
I'm sorry. I should have been there. I should have been there. I wasn't.
We'll forgive you.
I suppose.
Okay. Ready when you are.
Yes. Okay. And Elohim remembered Noah and all the beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And Elohim made a wind to pass over the earth, and the waters subsided. And the fountains of the deep and the windows of the Shamayim were stopped, and the rain from the Shamayim was withheld. And the waters receded steadily from the earth, and at the end of the 150 days the waters diminished. And in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. Ararat. Ararat.
All right.
And the waters decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month, the tops of the mountains became visible. And it came to be at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made, and he sent out a raven, which kept going out and returning back until the waters had dried up from the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for its feet, and returned into the ark to him, for the waters were on the face of all the earth. So he put out his hand and took it, and pulled it into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. And the dove came to him in the evening, and see, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in its mouth. And Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. And he waited yet another 7 days, and sent out the dove, which did not return to him again. And it came to be in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, that the waters were dried up from the earth. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and saw the surface of the ground was dry. And in the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. And Elohim spoke to Noah, saying, Go out of the ark, and you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living creature of all flesh that is with you, of birds, of cattle, and all creeping creatures that creep on the earth. And let them teem on the earth, and bear and increase on the earth. So Noah went out, and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives with him. Every beast, every creeping creature, every bird, whatever creeps on the earth, according to their kinds, went out of the ark. And Noah built an altar to Yahuwah, and took of every clean beast and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And Yahuwah smelled a soothing fragrance. And Yahuwah said in his heart, Never again shall I curse the ground because of man, although the inclination of man's heart is evil from his youth, and never again smite all life, as I have done. As long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, and winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. And Elohim Barak Noah and his
Yeah, hey,
sons.
hang on a minute. Let's see if there's anything we want to talk about in chapter 8 here. Let me see if anybody else is trying to get in. Okay, nobody is. Okay, so anything stand out in chapter 8 here?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
So I discovered in Jubilees, which was also found in great number in the Qumran scrolls. Do you remember that, Chloe, that in Jubilees, Jubilees was found alongside Genesis and the other scrolls of what we have as the canonized Bible? So if you go to chapter 6 of Jubilees, it's so exciting to me because Jubilees, which is also like
just Jubilees chapter 6.
Yeah, it's called nicknamed Little Genesis. And also they are said to be the scrolls that were found in Qumran that were not given to us in our canonized Bible. They're also called the parabiblical because they go right along with the Bible and actually should have been included. They should not have been excluded from us.
Where am I going? Chapter 6?
Chapter 6. So if you go there, Chloe, you've got the scriptures, right? So it's page 204 and 5. 22.
Depends on what.
She's got the big one.
Okay.
204?
2204.
And what verse are you going to?
I'm starting at verse 23.
Real quick.
I did start Jubilees. I haven't finished it yet. All right, start.
So what this particular passage does, 23 verses 23.
Okay.
Okay. So in Jubilees, well, if you notice in Genesis, it said in the seventh, like say verse 4 of chapter 8, and in the 7th month and on the 17th day, and skip down to verse 5, and the waters decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month on the first day, the tops of the mountains became visible. It's very specific about the 1st, 4th, and 7th and 10th months in chapter 8. So go to Jubilees, and it says, starting at verse 23, and on the new moon of the 1st month, and on the new moon of the 4th month.
By the way, that's the first. The new moon is really just the beginning of the month.
And on the 1st of the 4th month, and on the 1st of the 7th month, on the 1st of the 10th month. He's specifically pointing out the 1st, 4th, 7th, and 10th month. The years divided equally into 4. And Noah ordained them for himself as festivals for the generations forever. They are days of I'm skipping around here. They are days of remembrance, verse 23 says. And the days of the seasons into 4 divisions of the year. These are written and ordained as a witness forever. And
Wow.
Noah ordained them for himself as festivals for the generations forever, so that they have become thereby a memorial to him. On the first of the on the new of the first, should I just say the new moon of the first month, or how should I say
I
it?
don't really care, but we just need to know that they're talking about the first.
On the new moon of the first month, he was told to make the ark. And on that day, which would be a year later, the earth became dry, and he opened up the ark and saw the earth. On the new moon of the fourth month, the mouths of the depths of the abyss, or the fountains beneath, were closed. On the new moon of the seventh month, all the mouths of the abysses of the earth were opened. And on the new moon of the 10th month, the tops of the mountains were seen, and Noah was glad. On account of this, he ordained them for himself as festivals for a memorial forever, and thus are they ordained. And skipping down, all the days of the command shall be 52 weeks of days, and these shall make the entire year complete. Thus it is engraved and ordained on the tablets of the Shamayim, and there's no neglecting this command for a single year or from year to year. So the things of the flood, when Noah was told to make the ark, when the earth became dry and he saw it, the earth, when the abysses were opened, when the abysses were closed, when he saw the mountaintops, all these are specifically in the 4-month intervals. And he's assigned festivals essentially for each one of those intervals. I just think that is so interesting. They're kind of lined up for us. And it says, for all, let's see, don't leave any of it out any day nor disturb any festivals. And if they do neglect them and do not observe them according to this command, then they shall disturb all their seasons, and the year shall be dislodged from this order. And they shall neglect their laws, and all the children of Israel shall forget and not find the path of the years, and shall forget the new moons and the seasons and the Shabbatos, and they shall go astray as to the order of the years. And
Oh
actually,
my gosh.
I
Talk
know
about
it's huge.
365 days.
Yeah, this is just huge, this chapter 6, in addition to when you line it up with Genesis 6, 7, and 8.
Wow.
I just found it very exciting.
So summarize it though, because I was struggling to follow what we were saying here. What are you?
That was a big hunk of meat.
So for every 4 months, every 3 months, every 3 months was something specific that Noah noticed happening at that specific time frame
While the flood was occurring.
while it began. Okay, so when Noah was told,
it began to the time
the time Noah was told to build the ark. And then when the fountains of the deep were opened, and then when the fountains of the deep were closed, and then when they saw the tops of the mountains.
And those were all, we were told to celebrate those as festivals, which would have been the first of each of the months.
Timing of them, yes, the timing of them. I think they line up with his Yahweh's feasts.
It seems like from the start of the ending of the flood, maybe like the reconciliation or something.
So you're associating these timings with the various feasts that we've got, the appointed times? I'd have to go look. So you got the appointed times. Most of them are in the first month.
The chief of the year.
And then we have some in the 7th month.
It was in the new moon of the first month, he was told to make an ark. And on that same day, or on that same time frame, the earth became dry, and he opened up the ark and saw the earth. So the chief of the month, the chief of the year,
yeah. So
the chief of the year is the same timing that Noah was told to make the ark. And then you go 12 months later, and that's when the earth became dry. He opened and the ark and saw the earth. So that lines up with that's the chief of the year, the first month, the head of the year. And so that was my point, is
Okay.
just that, yes, that was a point.
Okay.
This is very I don't know if I don't know if I just didn't get to this chapter or if it just didn't mean it did. I didn't know how to assimilate the information, but having you read it and me looking at it, like all of our calendar stuff makes sense. And what does it say? It says, for I know, and from this time on I shall declare it to you, and it is not of my own devising, for the book is written before me. And there shall be those who assuredly make observations of the moon. Now it disturbs the seasons and comes in from year to year, 10
What are
days
you
too
reading
soon.
from, Clay?
The same chapter 6,
Of Jubilees?
yeah, 36.
Okay.
And then 37. For this reason, the years shall come upon them when they shall disturb the order and make an abominable day, the day of witness, and an unclean day, a feast day, and they shall confuse all the days, the Kodesh with the unclean, and the unclean day with the Kodesh. For they shall go astray as to the months, and the Shabbatot, and the festivals, and the Yobelim. And like that makes sense with the us, Sam, us, like Sunday being like the Lord's Day, like in Western Christian vernacular, and not Saturday. And then like how you guys were doing your calendar according to Enoch, and I was listening to Enoch and how the like I don't even know how to explain it. Just the way that when Uriel was explaining to Enoch how the days work essentially, or how the year is divided, and it all accumulates to 364 days. But we have extra days, and that's why we have a leap year, because our leap year accounts for, in this heliocentric system, our leap year accounts for the fact that we have extra days essentially. So our seasons, I don't think that we would have to have a leap year if we were adhering to the 364 day calendar, but this is saying
Well, this is
it's so huge. What we're saying?
this is all part of a very large discussion that's taking place. If you are out in the calendar discussions that are going on, there is this whole concept that in this idea of a solar year, it takes, if you are starting with in the Enoch model with the beginning of the solar year, beginning with the entering of the fourth gate in Enoch, it should take exactly 364 days for the sun to traverse all the way to the north, turn around, come back, halfway back at the equator, go all the way back to the southern, what do you call those? Cancer tropics, and then come back. It should take 364 days for it to come back to that period and enter the fourth gate again. But observably, they're watching it take 365.214, something like that, days. So there's this whole discussion over what we do as we're trying to observe. I think there's a unanimity about the Enoch calendar and the observance of a 364-day calendar, but there is not unanimity or agreement. And then what do you do with that 364-day calendar against the observable 365.21, whatever it is, number of days it takes for the sun to come all the way back around? And so it's creating this imbalance. And so in these circles where they're trying to observe the 364-day year, they are also trying to make up for that extra day, like they do in the leap year. Because even when they observe 365, they can't account for the 0.214, which is why every fourth year they have a leap year and add a day to make up for that. Well, there's a similar problem taking place in this 364-day calendar discussion. So I've got at least three iterations, three different ways that people are trying to come up. There's one guy, and I can't think of his name, Ken something
Ken
from,
Heidelberg?
no, Ken from
Johnson?
Johnson. Ken Johnson has what they calls a leap week. I think that's what he calls it, a leap week. We have what's the gentleman from George who
Newber.
Newber, who is using actual calendar dating from using actual measurement of the sun to come up with when, what day, and how you would apply these leap days. But in all of them, they're trying to apply some way to keep the year. If you're observing 364 days in a calendar, but it takes 365 days for the sun to come all the way around, with time, you start getting the seasons out of whack. So they're all trying to find a way to keep those seasons in order. But your mother and I have been talking, and we have made this decision based upon this passage right here in Jubilees, that the command is, first of all, the instruction with Enoch is that it is a 364-day year. It should come back around in 364 days to re-enter the fourth gate and begin again. It should not be taking 365 days, I think. And we're just talking here. We're just reasoning. And then we have this instruction from the 6th chapter here of Jubilees, where it says, is this where I'm at here? 6th chapter, it says basically, where were we at here? What passage were I think it was 23, basically, where it's saying that we are to keep 364 days a year. Am I in the right spot here?
In Enoch or Jubilee?
That should be in Jubilees, and where we get to verse 23. Okay, the new, okay, yeah, this is it down here. The command is that we are to, where does it say? And they command, and all the days of the command shall be 52 weeks of days, and these shall make the entire year complete. And thus it is engraved and ordained on the tablets of the Shemaim, and there is no neglecting this command. You shall command the children of Israel that they observe the years according to this reckoning, 364 days, and these shall constitute a complete year. Well, I don't see any room for, between Enoch and this, I don't see any room for leap years or leap days or anything of that nature. And we're pondering if, when we get up here to verse 33, when it says, if they neglect and do not observe them according to this command, then they shall disturb all their seasons, and the years shall be dislodged from this order, and they shall neglect their laws. So not only are the calendars out of whack because they failed to observe the correct timing and years, but we think possibly that the actual sun, the actual seasons, the actual solar makeup could also be dislodged. It could be just like the whole creation was disturbed with the fall of Adam. The failure to keep the command may be actually disturbing the actual order of the sun, and that's why the sun is taking 365.2 something days to make its yearly traverse versus 364. So are we called to keep the command of 364, or are we called to try to figure out how to make the command line up with the observable? So your mom, and if you look at the calendar that we have just given to you and Joe and Haley and others, we're starting this year, and until we're instructed otherwise, we're just going to go 364 days. And we're not, if you go to some of the calendars that they've held out to us as the Enoch calendars, the Zadok calendars, they're in their leap year. They're going to observe and hold back a year so that they can, or week, so that they can rectify and bring the seasons back in line. But by doing that, they're adding 7 days to 364 in that year. Was that hard to follow?
I I have to assimilate it with more information, but like that it says, for this reason I command and witness to you that you may witness to them. For after your death your children shall confuse them, so that they shall not make the year 364 days only. And for this reason they shall go astray as to the new moons and seasons and the Shabbatot and festivals. And they shall eat all kinds of blood with all kinds of flesh.
And so that's where we're at. That took place a long time ago. That took place probably back in the days of the Hasmoneans, where they began observing moon calendars. And I mean, there's a whole discussion there, but so it's taken place, and clearly we are not, except for hopefully the Shabbat. Hopefully we're on the seventh day when we're meeting on this, like today. But the rest of the appointed times that we're called to, we're pretty confident that we're all out of whack there. We do not know where we stand in the actual years of Yahuwah. We do not really know where we stand in the counting towards the end. We don't really know where we stand with an awful lot of it. But not only, and this would be our point, is not only did we go astray in the accounting of our appointed times, not only did we go astray with that, our failure to keep it has not only screwed up our calendars and our keeping of our calendars, but potentially even affected the
constellations themselves,
the order of the sun, the creation of the sun, and the sun keeping its intended order through creation. So we're reading verse 33. Potentially, not only is the calendar all screwed up and the appointed times all screwed up, but also the actual orbit of the sun is screwed up, our timekeeper, because of the failure to keep the commands of Yahweh, which we can take the failure of the commands, keeping the commands of Yahweh, all the way back to Adam, and how failing to keep commands messes up creation. And so we wonder because we've been in communications with George Neuber and with Ken Heidebrecht of Hanging on His Words, and some of these folks who are involved in these discussions of the calendars, and they are all agreeing to this 364-day calendar. So we're not ideally screwing up these appointed times and these new months and these things. But none of them they're all still trying to add some sort of a leap, some sort of an accommodation for the 365.21 days against the 364. And when they do that, whenever they do this, and I can't get any of them, I can't get responses back from them, but whenever they do this, they're not keeping 364 days. They're keeping more than 364 days. So they are doing the same thing as the Yehudim were doing when they started keeping, following the moon for their guidance and started getting out of whack because they were not following the instructions of the Enoch calendar. But I'm not sure we are today, even as we're trying to observe the 364-day calendar. I don't think we ever meant to get into this topic in this meeting because it's so big. It's so big. But this is an ongoing discussion about what we do with this 364-day command against the 300 and the 364-day Enoch. I mean, Enoch says across 8 years there are 1,800, whatever the number of days are, 8,000 something. You divide it by 8 years, and it comes to exactly 364 days. So there's no way in the Enoch calendar that you can be adding these additional intercalary days that create like the leap years, leap weeks, and different things. You can't keep adding days. It doesn't exist. So somewhere in the attempt to accommodate what we observe against what the commands are, we've got problems, and this is an ongoing discussion that it may not come about until Yahweh comes back or Yahushua comes back, that we get rectification in this. But in the meantime, we're having to make decisions. This is something your mom and I have been trying to decide against trying to go and hang out a little bit with Steve and some of those guys because we're trying to learn about these appointed days that we've never understood in our whole life before, and we're having to learn. But as we're trying to hang out with all of these people and try to learn from them, they're all keeping different days, and it's just hard for us. So we've made the decision to go with the equinox of March, whatever it is. This equinox is going to match up with the first of the year. We're going to stay on this, and we're going to try to just stay with a 364-day calendar year, even though for us, our seasons could get off. Anyway,
So can I just highlight it real quick while you're thinking? Or do you have it? Do you have the thought?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the only thing, maybe you guys are right about the sun, because I don't know anything about it. The only thing that I was thinking was, would it really be our failure that would make the sun do that? Or if the sun isn't following the orbit that it was commanded to, would that be a failure on the sun? And there are harsh punishments. So I wonder if the sun
is
can
transgressing.
transgress its own order. If it would transgress its own order, or maybe it is, or I don't know. I'm just saying.
Well, it seems like at some point, is it in Enoch where they're talking about the various stars
Even in
that
Jude.
transgress their order?
I think, is that Jude Jude is quoting Enoch.
Some of the what do they call the heavenlies? That class of angels, which we believe are apparently what some of the stars are.
Are they watchers?
What?
Are they watchers?
No, I don't think
they're
watchers.
messengers, but I don't know if they're watchers.
They're an angelic class,
yes.
And I think it's described in Enoch, I think.
And Revelation.
Yeah, and that somewhere a few of them get off and transgress their appointed what their assignments are, and then end up in trouble, big trouble. And maybe the sun, but I don't really know if the sun is considered one of those messengers. I really don't know. We don't know. What we do know is that it appears that the sun is taking 365 point some odd days to make this trek all the way to the north, back, then south, and then come back to the beginning. And it should be taking 364 days. Now, why? Because the sun transgressed, because people transgressed back then, or the whole flood. I know when we were talking with George Newber, he was saying, well, at least since the flood, they've been tracking this extra day, this 365 days. Well, maybe since the flood, it was all messed up. Don't really know how to account for this. I don't know.
The things that real quickly, the things that this brings to mind to me is the fall and the sin of Adam and Eve, of Adam, caused the entire creation to be thrown into the curse and disarray and the curse. And it says in Paul stated in Romans that all creation is groaning. The creation was thrown into this futility, not because they wanted it, but they were forced in. Creation was forced into this futility. And all of creation is groaning for the sons of Elohim to appear. And so this was just my overriding thought process over it, if I could sum it up. If the fall of Adam and the transgression of mankind repeatedly has caused the entire creation to be off, well, the heavenly bodies are part of creation. It all happened in the 6-day period. So if disobedience causes the messing up of it, the disarray, then would man's obedience, endeavoring to obey, would it enable it to be fixed? Now, again, this could be something that won't happen until the new heavens and the new earth, but I'd rather endeavor to be obedient and see if our obedience would have some influence on it.
get to putting them.
So those are my thoughts.
I do not know as much as you guys, and not even an iota as much as you guys about
Well,
this.
Yeah,
So-
we've just, your dad specifically has been talking with the guys that are involved in the calendar. Oh, little guys.
That's how they're attending the meeting with us.
They are. There's 3 from your side. Um, so it may be I mean, I'm sure that if somebody could just assess real quick, you're a fool for thinking that. But if disobedience brings chaos and the curse, does obedience bring order? And I would say it does, but I don't know if it will be on this side of the age or on the resurrection side of the age. But it really disturbs me to think that we're keeping a Kodesh day on the unclean day and keeping and what should be a Kodesh day, we're just treating as it's a normal day.
Yeah.
Since we're kind of off topic, I'm going to go. We're off topic, but it's an interesting topic, and we'll try to get back. We have an agenda, but it's a breakable agenda if we can hold close. But I want to go find, since we're on this topic, and it's such a big topic in the whole discussions of this discussion of
The calendar.
well, everything going on, the Torah environments, just
Yeah.
everything associated with the can you see that YouTube on my screen there? So here's Ken Johnson, who talks about the leap week. That's not where I'm going. I'm going to where's my West Blaze music? Here he is, West Blaze music. So here's some of his stuff, and he's got a video he put out, and it's this. Can you see this? This 364 days, 12 months, 52 weeks. And you can see here he's on this topic of the spring equinox. He's on the calendar here, and he's dealing with this. And he's, here's a video he called "Why 364 Day Calendar," the solar analemma, the equinoxes and solstices, the spring equinox, etc. And then here's a video he did on 364 days, 12 months. And I'm going to open that one up because it was in this one, watching this, because I'm curious, how is it that people, he's making the case of why we keep a 364-day calendar, because there's a discussion about the moon calendars and other things that are in a 13-month calendar and other ways that they say the Jews are keeping a calendar. And the argument is going forth for this 12-month, 364-day calendar. And that's what he's putting forth here. But they keep talking about 364. I am so interested in the topic of what do we do with this 365-day calendar year? And so this is their discussion. And I'm curious, and maybe I'm going to find out. Maybe I don't want to find out. But here is Mike. Can you see that? I actually commented to this 13 days ago. And here's what I wrote in this discussion. So I'm just going to go ahead and share it. I'll read it. See if I can make it bigger. And I'm not going to try to. I'll just read it to you.
Please.
In relationship to this discussion about 364 days, 12 months, 52 weeks, and he's discussing, this is West Blaze Music, this is Ken Heidelbrecht, and this is Sean Griffin, Hanging on His Words, West Blaze Music, and Kingdom in Context. And they're all discussing together how it's clear in scriptures that they were keeping, the true Zadokian priests were keeping this 364-day calendar given to them from Enoch and Jubilees. So my comment then was, thank you. In Enoch and Jubilees, the command is to reckon 364 days per year only. And your series is ably pressing this 12-month, 364-day year against some of the other calendar options. But what are you doing with this information against the 365-day solar year? That's the question I wish to have answered. Enoch 74:18 tells us that 8 years is comprised of 2,912 days, which equals 364-day years without any further intercalation. I am struggling to find anywhere or hear from anyone's sound scriptural justification for reconciling the 365-day solar year through additional intercalation. The command is 364. Are we to follow the command or to accommodate the observable? I hear people pressing the 364-day calendar year, but I've not heard from anyone embrace the command to actually observe it as the complete year. Rather than stand on the command, everyone seems to acquiesce to adding additional non-authorized intercalary days for the sake of the seasons in spite of it. Has failing to keep the command not only impacted the calendar, but the actual traverse of the sun? Jubilees 6:33 suggests that it is the years themselves that get dislodged from the order and not merely calendars. Would a believer-wide return to the command impact the actual solar cycle and return it to the original order? Or are we simply waiting for the return of Messiah to come and set things aright? I've been watching you three for a few years now, and respect you as some of the most deeply studied, making your insights and opinions valuable. If any of you have addressed this, I've missed it. I know this subject is hard, but would love to hear from any or all of you. I'd like to hear any or all of you approach it head on. If I'm missing something in scripture, I'd like to know. Thank you for your work. I've got no comments to that.
That's
After 13
surprising.
days. I don't know that people know what to do with it. I've approached this Ken Heidelbrecht by email, and he's commenting, he finds it interesting that, and he acknowledges it, as many do, as does George Neuber, but they cannot release the fact that the observable solar calendar year is 365 point some odd days. So they all wish to accommodate that in some way. But by accommodating it, we immediately fail to keep the command. And that's the problem. How do we rectify this? And we're putting forth, hey, just keep the command and maybe the solar cycle will come back in line. But if your mom and I and you, if you keep it, if we're keeping the command, will our little bit of keeping obedience impact the solar calendar, or does it need to be believer wide? I don't know. I think it's bigger than any of us, including any of these guys, can come up with. I think it's going to require rectification of Yahuwah when the time comes.
Maybe you guys already thought of this, but what I wonder, or what I just wondered is, it's being specific in Jubilees and on the new moon and on the moon. So like, why, like if you take a vacation, you're going to spend like whatever the designated day, like whatever the time length is. If you take a vacation, so you're going to spend 5 days and 4 nights. So if they're being specific in Jubilees about the moon, is it possible, and I don't know anything about it, but just because I'm noticing moon and not sun, like it's not saying on the new sun, are we supposed to be observing a solar system, or are we supposed to be observing a lunar system and measuring the days against the lunar path rather than the solar path?
Okay, so yeah, okay. That is part of this whole discussion. And this argument you see here is, let me give, I guess this is good because this is going on recording, and so it's going to go out and others can hear this too. What we find in the Qumran caves, and if you haven't heard this from us and from me, I'm confident that the Qumran caves, which are Bethabara, according to our scriptures, this is where the exiled Zadokite priests, the true Aaronic priests that the Zadokite priesthood, which is the true Aaronic priesthood, was removed by Antiochus IV and replaced with non-Aaronic priests. So from 168 BC, the Zadokite priests were cast out and they were kicked out and they were exiled. And where they went to, some of them went, we think, to Egypt, but some of them went off into the deserts, which is Bethabar, which is the Qumran area, which is where John the Baptist would have gone out into the deserts. And your mom just found some scriptures where they're describing these Zadokite priests in the Bethabara area, the caves of Qumran, the Dead Sea Scroll area, where they had a compound where they were doing baptisms. They had baptismals. So this is where John the Baptist, we believe, went and became, some are even saying the high priest, became the true high priest during that time, which makes sense because Yahushua then came, he didn't come down to the temple and the illegitimate priest to be, what do you call that when he's authorized? Anointed. He came to Bethabara. He came to John the Baptist, his cousin, the legitimate Zadokite priest, to be anointed and to be baptized, not necessarily in the rivers of the Jordan River, but in the baptismals. So all of that to say that this whole area there that we call the Dead Sea Scrolls, from which they have now uncovered many of the scriptures that would have been the scriptures that we believe the Pharisees and the certain people left out on purpose. Things like Enoch, Jubilees, the testament of the things you're reading. This is where they were preserved, in these legitimate Zadokite priest caves. And in that Zadokite priest caves, and during that time, this is the struggle. They were the priests of the sons of light. These were the folks that were keeping the solar calendars. The Zadokite priests were keeping the solar calendars. So before they were cast out, all of Israel was keeping the Enochian calendar, the Zadokite calendar, the 364-day solar calendar. When they were cast out, this was part of the whole debate. Greece had and the Babylonians had lunar-based calendars, and they introduced lunar-based calendars, and they forced it upon the Yehudim of the land. They forced lunar-based calendars on the land, which was part of the objection. That's why Antiochus kicked the Zadokite priest out, Onias out, because he said, we cannot observe. Our entire appointed day system is dependent upon this. So they kicked him out, and he brought in, what was his name?
Onias the fourth.
Yeah, but who was it that came in? It doesn't really matter. When the priest that they brought in, acquiesced to the lunar-based calendar. And so that's when we started this whole battle of the sons of light and the sons of darkness that you will see in the Qumran calendar. So the lunar-based calendars were introduced in and around 168 AD, and then or BC. And that becomes when we get the Jews, the current Jews of Judaism today, when they're trying to keep lunar-based calendars, which is what's leading us to this, some of the discussions about this 13th month that they're addressing in this video here. So the discussion is solar against lunar. Lunar, and if you read Enoch, Enoch is clear. If you keep the years according to the solar moon, you will bring in the year 10 days too soon, because the lunar year is 354 days and not 364 days. So if you keep the lunar year, you will bring in the years at least 10 days too soon, over and over and over again. So the command is to not keep lunar years. All that to say that as you're reading that in Jubilees, the keeping of the lunar calendars, the lunar years, as their dates and their calendars is part of what has screwed all of this up and got us all screwed up. So the argument they're making, and the argument that's going forth, and that seems pretty evident, that the Zadokite priests were keeping was the solar calendar, and we should have been keeping the solar calendar all along. The real question isn't whether or not we keep lunar versus solar. We're confident we're supposed to be keeping the solar calendar. I mean, the commands are everywhere. That's what they're referring to. The command is everywhere, that it is the solar calendar of 364 days that we are commanded to keep. What is in question is What do we do with that extra day that it's taking the sun to come all the way around? That if we were perfectly observing Enoch in its complete description, it would only take 364 days, not 365.24 days, for that sun to make its complete circuit. And that's the problem. Not solar versus lunar, but solar as in the Enoch circuit of 364 days versus the solar of the observable 365.21 days we're seeing the sun take to make that complete circuit. Were you able to follow that okay?
Yeah.
There's no answer to this. In talking with Rick here recently, this is one of the things that, as I'm discussing this with Rick, it's one of the things that is a stumbling block to him. How do you take Jubilees serious
And
Enoch serious when they're telling us 364, but we're observing 365? Does that make Jubilees and Enoch illegitimate? Well, I don't think so. I think the answer has to be in some other thing that ties it together. Like everything else, we're finding that as we keep digging and we keep looking, we find the things that tie it all together. And I think that's what we're going to find on this whole calendar. How did we get off on this? I know how we got off on it, but I don't know how we went so deep into it.
Genesis 8 with Noah and the flood.
Thanks a lot, Noah. But there is in that solar calendar, there is referencing to these days you're talking about. We've got the seven appointed, the Moedim, the appointed times that we're to meet, but there are more festive feasts. And these dates that you're referring to are on the Enochian calendar, and I want to go look at it. Each of those 4 intercalary days, that would be the 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th, each have a festival associated with it that they were keeping. When they talk about their new moon festivals, new month festivals, this is what they're talking about. That's not the Moedim.
Okay.
That's the new month festivals that
cool.
you're referring to.
Okay.
So, and they were on the calendars. They're on the calendars. So, all right.
This is a topic where I only learn.
It starts somewhere, huh?
Well,
You
you
gotta
know
start
what
somewhere.
though? That's true of almost everybody
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's just not part of the circles that anybody's running in unless you're clear off the beaten path where these guys are at and these circles are going. That your mom and I got off into 4 years ago. We're only 4 years into this. These guys are 10, 12, 13 years in it. Some of them are, Steve is 25 years into all of this, and we're playing catch up. And we're running hard, but we're playing catch up.
We're depending on Daniel's scripture that says, and knowledge will increase. In the latter days, knowledge will increase, and we're depending on that.
And I will say that they probably have experienced much of what we've experienced, which is sometimes we get truths and we follow the rabbit hole only to realize that rabbit hole does not lead where it has value. It doesn't. The rabbit hole is not a good rabbit hole, so we end up coming back. So my guess is so many of these things that all these guys have gone down, they go down these paths of information to find out that these paths were not correct, and they have to back it out and start. So maybe we have an advantage because we get to work and learn from their mistakes too. So as we're building this in the last days, we think that the knowledge is coming forth in the last days, that things that have been hidden from us by Satan, who is the king of this world, the great deceiver, the hider, has been hiding so much more than we ever realized in so many more circles. All the systems are his. All of them are his. And so only now in these last days, and according to Daniel, are we seeing knowledge come forth and things come out, things that were hidden becoming divulged.
And in Enoch 1, the first few verses, he said, he was telling him, Noah, write these things down, but it's not for this generation. It is for a remote one. So the information that Enoch was given is for our time. That was thousands and thousands of years ago.
And just like they say, he says to Daniel, seal it up, Daniel, because it's for another time. Seal up the
Well,
words.
even John was told to seal something up. You can't utter this stuff. It's got to be sealed up for now.
And we think that's where we're at. We're in the beginning And this is to me more evidence that we are in the last of the last days. What that means, within a year or two or within 100 years, I don't know, but we're in the last of the last days, and I think this is more evidence of it.
I always go back to when Esdras asks Uriel, he says, has more time passed than there is to come? And Uriel goes, as the fire is greater than the smoke, and as the storm is greater than the droplets, so the time that is past is greater than the time to come.
That was 2,000 years ago. That's 2,500, 2,400 years ago. Like that.
I know.
Yeah, not bad.
So we're just we're in the vapors, man.
Yeah, where the smoke, where the droplets.
It's too bad. It's too bad we can't get you down here because I've started trying to both Enoch and Second Esdras, which are our two favorite books. I've been trying to read it in the Yah scriptures or the Hallelujah scriptures so that we can, eliminate the Lord and all those things that we don't want to be saying over and over again and introduce some of this language. So I've been reading scriptures. Too bad you can't be down here to read for us and put it.
We want it on video or audio.
Something that we can turn on and listen to in the car, go to sleep to, where the Second Esdras is being read to us. And so I'm doing it. And I'm
narrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Too bad that you can't be here to narrate that.
Because Dad's all set up in his office. He's got a good microphone and good equipment to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's all these videos we're making. That's what we're using.
We can just spend the entire. I honestly could spend an entire day reading. I often do that. Well, not a whole day, but
here's something for you to work out. If you ever want to just take a day where you come down to visit us and don't spend your whole day visiting us, go back into my office and read for us and put this down, narrate so that we have, because you would be creating a video. Basically, like you see up there on the screen, you're going to be having it up like this. You're going to be reading the Yah scriptures. We would have Second Esdras up and you'd be reading it, and you'd be reading it to people, and you'd have a visual and the verbal. So yeah, if you want to do it, because I think you read well, and I'm struggling to get it all done. I am locked down in insert, and it isn't just Second Esdras we want to read. We want Jubilees. We want
Enoch, Jubilees, Second Esdras,
and not from. We have people we like to hear from. We've got Scorby. We've got this other guy, but they're reading from versions that are throwing in words we don't want to hear and not including the name of Yahweh. So we want to have it in the restored name versions. So
I was looking for Wisdom of Sirach on YouTube because Christopher Glenn does not have it, but there's a man who was reading Sirach from the Yahuwah scriptures, and so he was using this translation to read it, but he was so entertaining because he was black, so he had like he was like some but like the all
adding things in
the fashion of it, and I was and he would do the voices too, like, and do not say unto yourself something that and for Yahweh is patient. But I really liked it a lot.
That sounds interesting. You have to send that to me so I can hear that.
I will.
I like that.
I will.
Dramatized. It was a dramatized version.
We try not to go too far into dramatization, but we like the Scurby does a good job of reading. I wish he could have read these versions because he reads so well.
Alexander Scorby. Are you familiar with him?
I
think you'd notice his voice.
Have you commented on his page?
Have a what?
Have you commented on his page? Tell him, please read the Yah scriptures.
I think hasn't he passed away?
He might be dead.
Oh no.
Not sure. I'm not positive.
It's too late. He probably knows the right version to read now.
All right. If we beat this to death, shall we go? Let me see. Was there anything else because we're really in Genesis 8 here. Was there anything else that stood out? Let's see. There was something I was thinking that did strike me, and let's see what it was. 601st year. first month, first day. I don't know. I will say Noah was 650 when this happened, and he lived another 300 years after the flood, something like that, and was contemporary with Nimrod, contemporary with Abram,
Yeah.
even with Isaac and to a degree.
So Jim, well, in verse 20 of chapter 8, Noah built an altar.
That's exactly what I was
Noah
going
built
to
an
talk to.
altar to Yahweh and took out every clean beast and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. This was the renewal of what covenant, Jim, wasn't it? Or the renewal of the festival. It was
Shavuot.
Shavuot.
Yeah, and he ended up waiting. I think in one of the writings, he ended up having to
I
wait
think this is Jubilees
until
as
the
well.
time came around. So he waited like a certain number of days for the feast of that Shavuot to come about. But I would like to make a comment that and one of the things that I'm working on today, when we talk about the priests, we always think of the Levitical priests being the folks in charge of the tabernacle and all the sacrificing, but there was a priesthood that predates them, and it really came down through Enoch. When you read the testament of the 12 patriarchs, they're referencing the writings of Enoch, and Abraham was operating as a priest. He kept the ordinances of Yahweh. So there was clearly a priestly, which is an interaction with Yahweh duty that involved sacrifices and animals that they understood in those days. And it really, we believe, comes from Enoch. And clearly, he's operating in this priestly capacity here because he has built an altar and is sacrificing. So he's operating in the priestly duty. Later, when this passes down through Melchizedek and then down through Abraham, and then from Abraham to Yitzchak, from Yitzchak to Yaakov, and then from Yaakov to Levi. That's how so by the time the Levitical priests come about 500 and 600 years later, they were well into the priesthood was already established. And it was just once they became a nation that the tribe of Levi became the official priests of the nation of Israel. But the priesthood existed almost from the beginning. Okay. All right. Anything else shall we go on to Genesis 9 here?
You want to read again, Chloe?
Sure.
Okay. We're at 11:15. Do you need a 5-minute break, Chloe?
I don't. Do you?
Okay. I took a break just a few moments ago. I may have to take a break in a few more minutes, but we'll see. Go ahead.
Okay. And Elohim barak Noah and his sons and said to them, bear fruit and increase and fill the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, on every bird of the Shamayim, on all that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hand they have been given. Every moving creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all, as the green plants. But do not eat flesh with its life, its blood. But only your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it, and from the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed. For in the image of Elohim has he made man. As for you, bear fruit and increase. Bring forth teemingly in the earth and increase in it. And Elohim spoke to Noah and his sons with him, saying, and I establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the birds, of the cattle, and of every beast of the earth with you, of all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and never again is all flesh cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again is there a flood to destroy the earth. And Elohim said, this is the sign of the covenant which I make between me and you, and every living creature that is with you, for all generations to come. I shall put my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. And it shall be, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the rainbow shall be seen in the cloud. And I shall remember my covenant which is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh, and never again let the waters become a flood to destroy all flesh. And the rainbow shall be in the cloud, and I shall see it, to remember the everlasting covenant between Elohim and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth. And the sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem and Ham and Japheth. And Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and all the earth was overspread from them. Noah, a man of the soil, began and planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunk, and became uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brothers outside. So Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. But their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done to him. And he said, Cursed is Canaan, and let him become a servant of servants to his brothers. And he said, Baruch be Yahuwah, and become his servant. So let Elohim enlarge Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So all the days of Noah were 950 years, and he died.
Okay, so I guess I was wrong. He lived 600, not 650. He was 600 when the flood came, and he lived 350 years after, which 350 puts him solidly 100 years plus into the time of Abraham, because I believe Abraham was, anyway, solidly in there. I would like to go back, and we don't want to make a big topic out of this, but it is such a big topic in our world today in this discussion, because the church teaching is that with this new covenant, which we do not agree that we are in the new covenant, and we don't have a new covenant people called the church. We are in the original covenant, and we as the church have joined Israel, and we are subjected to the same instructions that Yahweh gave Israel. And part of the instructions that Yahweh gave Israel had to do with food, what is clean and not clean. But the church, since its time, has taken the writings of Paul and some different things to basically say, oh no, Paul says it's okay to eat everything, and they say that Messiah says it's okay to eat everything. Well, that's just not what Paul's saying. I mean, that's a topic for another day to what Paul might be addressing, but I think it is germane to this discussion, because this is one of the go-to verses where they say, see, all food is given. There's nothing wrong with, you can eat any food. You can eat pig, or swine, you can eat shellfish, you can eat all the things that he said not to eat, because when he gets off the boat, where is this? So starting in verse 2 and then going into 3, and the fear of you and the dread of you is on every beast of the earth, and on every bird of the Shemayim, and all that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. And to your hand they have been given. Every moving creature that lives is food for you. I have given you all as the green plants. So, not that we can know exactly what, first of all, this is being translated from something, so you have to trust the translation that it is true. But if you go too far down that road, then you could find yourself second guessing all of Scripture. So let's just assume that the translation is accurate, and he really is saying every moving creature that lives is food for you. But is that really then giving everybody authority to eat anything they want?
Is it abrogating the distinguishing he just made, which he did one thing with the clean animals, one thing with the unclean?
Yes.
So there's specific distinctions about clean and unclean. So are we now saying in verse 3 that he's abrogated everything?
Well, and one of the things that is spoken is that the clean and unclean is given to us in Leviticus, and the instructions to the nation of Israel through Moshe. Here's what's clean and here's what's unclean. This is what's food for you, and this is an abomination. Do not eat this. Well, we think that, without going any further than that, the church pretty much understands that to be the beginning of this clean and unclean. But in truth, clearly, clean and unclean had to be established before the flood, because they had distinguishment between clean and unclean. Then we had 7 clean and 2 unclean of all the animals. So there was a distinguishment before. So we think Enoch probably knew, and Noah probably knew, and the faithful probably knew what was clean and unclean to eat. So now that we're getting off of the ark and he's sacrificing some of the clean animals, is he really saying to Noah that every moving creature that lives for you is food? That would include then all of the unclean animals. Because this is one of the things they go to establish that, okay, yeah, see, we can. But let me say a couple things that come to mind. You and I have reasoned a couple things, and this Terry, your mom and I have reasoned a couple things. If he literally meant that all food, all living creatures are food for you, if he literally meant that, and to include the unclean animals, he goes on to say, then I give all to you as with all the green plants. Then, well, some of the green plants are poisonous. So are we saying that you can eat anything you want to, any food, any animal you want, and any green plant you want? Can you eat poisonous plants and it not harm you? I mean, really, you could take this. We're not asserting this. We're just reasoning this, that is this clearly what he is trying to say, that any food is for you, and including any animal and any green plant. Would that make sense that could be what he's saying?
If it is not something like that, then Yahweh is flip-flopping all the way through the scriptures, because he made it clear then to Moshe and the people, he specifically outlined what was clean, what was not clean.
Yes. And I was going to say,
and it's an abomination and detestable.
And since you're bringing it up, I was going to go there. That is post this. So even if he literally gave everything to Noah, to us, he said no. To us, the nation of Israel. Even if he gave it to Noah before he was a Hebrew, because Noah's not a Hebrew. No, the Hebrews begin with Abraham.
Yeah.
So even if he was literally giving all the green plants, all of the unclean animals to Noah to eat, when he brought the tribes, the children of Abraham out into the desert, he gave them a command that says, don't. I distinguish between clean and unclean food. So there's the command. So even if this was a command to Noah, it would not be a command to us. And the command to us comes after that and would usurp this, or what do you call that?
Abrogate it.
Abrogate it, but what do you call it? It would make this obsolete. It would.
That is
kind
of that word.
There's a word.
Nullify it.
Transcends it.
Transcend.
Yeah, but there's a word for it. I can't think of it. Go ahead, Chloe.
There's probably, there's probably deeper reasons than this, but I mean, even I forgot what Kodesh meant, and I looked it up in my glossary because I was like, I was wondering if there was a glossary, and I was like, oh, there's a glossary. Kodesh meaning set apart, so Noah, after the children of Israel were brought out of Mitzrayim, they're Hebrews, and this is the set apart nation. So what I command you to do, I could it at the very least, there's probably deeper reasons, but at the very least, is it for the
set apart nation, the Kodesh nation?
You do set apart, there are things that you do and you don't do. There are things that you participate in and you don't participate in. There are things that you wear, and there's a way that you wear your beard, and there's a way that you wear your hair, and there's a way that you show to others that you are set apart and chosen by me. Yeah, mine. Yeah. And I listened to Ben Shapiro a long time ago, and he said that essentially, in the simplest, most practical terms, he was like, I wear my yarmulke because we wear our things, and I wear my yarmulke. I'm not going to take my yarmulke off because that's how that's how we show that this is our skin in the game. This is skin in the game. And so I wonder if that's kind of I wonder if there's some practicality in that in a certain way. Although there probably is something deeper than that, but.
No, I think that's very good. In fact, I just made a video. I'm just finishing it up. I mean, it's going to be, I've already finished it. I'm just proofing it right now, where we're addressing this. This is what we're called to be. You have the covenant made to Abram. that, once he grows, his children grow to a strong enough number that, and then come out of Mitzrayim or Egypt, then they are called to be the nation. And that's when Yahweh makes his covenant with this nation. And the covenant is for them to come out and be, if you will, if you will treat me as your Elohim, if this is the covenant, if you will obey my voice and treat me as Elohim, then I will set you apart as a particular Kohanim, which is a priest, and a Kodesh nation, a separate, set apart nation. So that is the covenant, to be set apart and different amongst all of the tribes of the world. So you've hit on it. There is a set apartness that we are called to. And now we have the nation of Israel was called together. They broke covenant and ultimately have now been judged and dispersed. And we're living in this dispersed age. But the promise is to this nation of Israel that they will be regathered. And this is the future. This is the resurrection. This is the rapture. This is New Jerusalem. This is what's coming. Here is how he's identified how it is he wants them to behave. Here are my ways, and here's how I want you to live in my ways, my right rulings, my Torah. And when they come back into the nation, that's what's going to be reintroduced. So why would it be any different now? If we're going to be part of Israel, we are called to be that peculiar people. Not peculiar for the sake of being peculiar, but peculiar in that we are the ones observing the communicated ways of Yahuwah that he gave to only one nation, only one group of people, Yisrael. He gave his ways to Yisrael, and he's going to reestablish it at the end time. And that's what we should be contending for today, which
And
is
there's
what's
a to that.
a what?
There's a naturalness to that as well. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's really, I was kind of done. That sets us apart from the church teaching, because the church is teaching us that the Israel is no longer the covenant people. The covenant people are this church, and you have a new covenant, and that the law of the old covenant, which they are claiming is the problem versus the people's inability to keep the law. They claim that is the problem. So we have this new covenant where the law's been done, and we got a new covenant people made up of the Gentiles not subject to the law. And they don't realize that not being subject to the law is saying you're not subject to the ways, the Torah, the instructions, the right rulings of Yahweh. It's rebellion against Yahweh, and they don't know that. And that's how we are now coming out of that misunderstanding back into the understanding that we were called into the ways that were identified in those days, in that Torah. Those are his ways, and that's how we need to be reestablishing, realigning our lives to be reflective of the ways that he gave to Israel, which is peculiar and different and apart from the rest of the world. So we weren't called to make Yahweh part of these Gentile nation, cultures, ways of celebrating. We were called to come out of wherever we are, the Gentile nations and cultures and feast days, and into the ways of Yahweh. So really, what you just shared is what we just made a video on it. So,
well, I was thinking that along those lines, like there's a naturalness to that, as in like we as humans can understand in part like why Yahweh would want us to do that anyway, because in the same way, like Yahweh is very serious about, who he is and what he is and his character is, and thus he wants to be represented a certain way, in the same way that like how mom and me and Joe all represent you, and like that principles in scripture, like the conduct of any individual isn't only consequential to that individual, but is representative and is and it's consequential to the people around you. So the conduct of shameful conduct of the mother is a reproach unto the son. That's, I think it says that in Sirach. And don't rejoice when your father comes to shame, because because that's also a shame unto you. You think people will think well of you if they don't think well of your father? And that just all goes back to when I don't remember where I read this in, but Paul calls attention to the verse, like he quotes the verse, but when Yahuwah says, the Gentiles blaspheme me because of you.
Yeah, his name is blasphemed all day because of you.
Over and over again. This is a constant theme in the scriptures. This is one of the problems.
Yeah. So like this the idea that we're set apart is this is how, like, I can imagine for practicality's sake, I want you to represent me this way, and I wouldn't eat anything. Like, why does God call, or why does Yahuwah call a pig unclean, or like a fish with scales unclean? I don't know. But if he wouldn't, but would he eat something unclean, and would he want his children to eat something unclean? And at the end of the day, like, it's not because he's a tyrannical person, like a tyrannical personality, but why does he care about whether or not we eat clean or unclean foods? And I think that a lot of that, like, I'm sure he has his own reasons, but I can also see an aspect of just being a good father in that. When when Yahushua says, if your child asks for an egg, will you give him a rock instead? And but like, if you know how to give good gifts to your children, as evil as you are, don't you think that your Father in heaven knows how to give you good gifts? And I can apply that in the same way as, like, if your father wouldn't eat something like this, would he want you, or if your father wouldn't eat this, would he want you to eat this, or would he give you something better? And all that I mean by that is like that, like, the whole world's full of degradation, and people like degrade people and themselves all the time. And Yahuwah would never degrade us, and he doesn't, and he sees us as very valuable. Or I mean, we are very valuable to him. So so if Yahuwah considers it a degradation to eat something unclean, like, why? I don't know. That's a thought process that I just now got on. So I haven't fully articulated it. But is it a matter also of, you represent me, I don't want you to degrade yourself, but also I just don't want you to degrade yourself.
Yeah. For your mother and I, part of our methodology, we are conservative people. Mm-hmm. So when in doubt, we take the safer road because we're conservative. And just on this topic, and before we move off of it, the last and most clear instruction we find in Leviticus, where he tells us these are the clean foods to eat and these are the not clean foods to eat. Every other reference to it is not that clear. No matter how they want to talk about, and really, I've proven that some of those scriptures were added and not even really said, not even recorded, where they say that, Yahushua said this so that because he was trying to prove that all animals are clean or something of that nature. Well, that was inserted. It wasn't even part of the scriptures. But the point is, no matter how you cut it up, there is not clear direction about foods in the new writings. There is some question about what we call common and uncommon foods, which would be a clean food that is made uneatable for Pharisaical reasons, which was an argument, and I think that is the major argument Paul is always going through when he's addressing food and people not eating food because of conscience and other things. He's not talking about clean and unclean, because it was never a question of eating clean or unclean. They never ate unclean. It was always a question of what kind of clean can you eat? What makes a clean animal common now and not something you'd want to eat. My point is, the safe thing to do in all of this, if you really want to make sure you're obeying Yahweh when you have no clear instruction to replace the clear instruction, the safe thing to do is to follow the clear instruction. I will say to everybody listening that if you want to make sure, unless Yahweh gives you some sort of clear indication, you're not getting it from scripture that we can see. The clear and safe thing to do if you want to honor Yahweh is to not, just don't eat it. Why? You don't need to eat lobster
or bacon or
or
pork
bacon
or ham
against the clear command, with the hopes that somebody said it's okay somewhere when the clear command is not. If you want to be safe, if you want to make sure you are not disobeying your Elohim that you're supposed to be in loyal covenant with, Hasid, just don't do it. And you wouldn't use this passage that has also some ambiguity to it for some of the reasons we've discussed, to say that I can eat anything I want because he's
told Noah.
Yahweh told Noah he can eat anything that he wants, including apparently all the different green plants, which would be poisonous plants. It's too ambiguous and it's not safe. The safe thing to do is to not eat it. Which is what we are now embracing. We're not eating things that are unclean any longer.
I have a couple scriptures in Isaiah, Yeshayahu 65, which is the end of the book. Yahweh is speaking. And he says, I have let myself be inquired of, not by those who asked. I was found, not by those who sought me. I said, here I am, to a nation not calling on my name. I have held out my hands all day long to a stubborn people who walk in the way that is not good, after their own thoughts. The people who provoke me continually to my face, who slaughter in the gardens and burn incense on altars of brick, who sit among the graves and spend the night in secret places, who eat the flesh of pigs, and the broth of uncleanness is in their pots, who say, keep to yourself, do not come near me, for I am Kodesh to you. These are smoke in my nostrils, a fire that burns all day. And then in verse, pardon?
I think you should do the recording. I love your reading.
I've thought about it. I just don't have the microphone set up at my system like your dad does, and he's in his office most of the time when we're home. But so verse 60 or chapter 66, verse 17, these are references to the new heavens and new earth. So this is after this age, and it still matters to him. He says, for by fire and by sword, Yahuwah shall judge all flesh, and the slain of Yahuwah shall be many. Those who kadesh themselves and cleanse themselves at the gardens after one in the midst, eating flesh of pigs and the abomination and the mouse, come to an end altogether, says Yahuwah. They're going to be judged in the end. So how can they be judged in the end and it not be of significance now? And you went or showed this word several years ago, and I've not forgotten it. And I've done a little deeper study as well because of what you did. Abomination, that word in Hebrew, sheket, it's detestable, it's filth, it's abhorrent, and it's loathsome. He says those are that. And he's very particular about his people. If you go back to, real quick, if you go back to Exodus, the Shemoth, chapter 11, Yahweh was about ready to allow the destroyer to destroy the firstborn of Israel, the last curse prior to Moshe leading the children of Israel out of Mitzrayim.
The Egyptians.
Say again?
You said the firstborn of Israel. Did you mean the Egyptians?
Yes, of Egyptians, correct. Firstborn of Egyptians, Mitzrayimites. Mitzrayites. So he's talking to Moses. This is right before the curse happens of the firstborn being smited, before they leave out of their bondage, out of the house of iron furnace and house of bondage. It's chapter 11, verse 7 of Exodus. But against any of the children of Yisrael, no dog shall move its tongue against man or against beast, so that you know that Yahweh makes distinction between Mitzrayim and Yisrael. And I looked that word up, distinction. It's the word palah, Palah, and it has to do with wonderfully distinctive, marvelously and astonishingly separate. And it has to do with extraordinary distinguishableness. It means to be severed. And I added this, to be severed from the world's conformity of corruptness. And so he's called us to be distinctive and separate in the most beautiful and wonderful and demanding reverence and awe. So when you think of Joshua, in the book of Joshua, where Rahab told the two spies were sent from Joshua into Jericho to spy out to see what was going to happen or what was happening before they attacked. And Rahab, she said, hey, you guys, please protect me. I'll hide you, but when you attack, protect me and my family, their household and their possessions. He said, because she said, I know that our hearts melt because of the God, the Elohim of Yisrael. Our protection is gone, and our hearts melt because of fear of Elohim and you people that he delivered out of Mitzrayim. So when Yahweh's people do what he says, he can work through us in ways that will astonish the world around us. But we haven't known to do that. We've been eating of the world, partaking of their festivals, their holidays. So there's nothing distinctive about us. We don't cause fear for anybody. And remember the Philistines and the king of the Philistines, they were jealous of Isaac and all he possessed because there was something unique about him, because he was one of the wealthiest men in that territory, if not the wealthiest, and it made the Philistines and their king jealous. We're not doing that in this day. Is it because we're so disobedient and have not understood what to be obedient and what that looks like? How do I be obedient? What does it look like? So those are my thoughts.
All right. Well, we've made it through a whopping 2 chapters.
It's big, man. It's big.
Also, if we have time, would I also be able to share something at the end that I learned?
Yeah, let's read one more chat. Well,
at the end.
Okay, so it's 11:44. Do you want to just do it now? And we'll pick up. We'll just pick up.
Close it out.
We'll just do chapter 10.
Right.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pray. Well, actually, I thought, is it scripture you want to share? Is it that something?
Yeah, it's scripture and an assimilation of thought process.
Okay, something for everybody, something for the larger group, or something for us?
Oh,
because if it's for everybody, then let's just go ahead and do it. We won't close out with prayer. We'll just make this part of the meeting. So, go ahead.
Do you want to finish because you had an agenda and I don't want to throw it off.
No, the agenda is, we're already going through the agenda. We're just going through chronologically. We're going through, it could take us 50 years to get through, but we're going to go through the scriptures chronologically. And we would normally include a proverb or psalm, and we would also include new writings, but we won't be getting to any, we're not even going to get through the old scriptures today. So, but that's okay.
Well, mine comes out of the wisdom of Solomon.
Well, yep, we'll just close out what we were doing for the what we call the chronological, and we'll just go that direction. So go ahead. But where are you going? Wisdom of Solomon? Let me see if I can find it here.
It is toward the back.
Can you give me the page once you get there?
Yes.
I could probably get it up to share on the screen too, if given just a second here. If you'll give me a chapter, Wisdom of Solomon, you say, hey?
Yes.
What page is it on?
I am finding it, so it will take me no time at all.
What chapter did you say? I found it.
I think it's chapter 13.
I've got 2656 in my book. Or, sorry. 2650. 5.
Because I don't think it's in here. Oh, no,
Oh.
there it is. Okay, so what is it? I'm there. Give me the chapter and verse again.
Yeah, it's 13. And that would be
I got it here.
26:55. Okay.
2650. I don't
So
think so. What is it? Say it again. What's the chapter and verse?
13 verse 1 on page 2655.
Starting with surely all men are ignorant.
Yes.
Okay, I'm up.
So I want to preface it really fast. So one of the questions that I have wondered about, and maybe everybody wonders about, but I have wondered about, is people die all the time, and people die often who never hear about Yahuwah or the gospel or anything. And so when that happens, like, how are they judged, and do they go to hell, or are they preserved? And I've wondered about, what did it mean when preached to the dead and preached to those in hell? Um, and well, what I always kind of fell back on was in Romans, Paul says, and I want to, in Romans, Paul says that people essentially people know right and wrong because the law, like, just in their hearts, people know inherently by universal law, like, just by universally, people know when they're right and wrong because their consciousness or their consciences convict them, and they have the law written on their, or like, that's the evidence of the law being written on our hearts. And I wish that I wish I had it more assimilated than that, but or articulated than that. But that was always really important to me, and I thought, well, okay, sorry.
So here we go. It's Romans 2, 12 through 14. If you can see it on the screen here, for as many as sinned without Torah shall also perish without Torah, and as many as sinned in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. For not the hearers of the Torah are righteous in the sight of Elohim, but the doers of Torah shall be declared right. For when Gentiles who do not have the Torah by nature do what is in the Torah, although not having the Torah, they are a Torah to themselves, who show the work of the Torah written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or even excusing in the day when Yahuwah shall judge the secrets of men through Yahushua HaMashiach, according to my good news. Is that what you were thinking of?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Thank you so much. And so the people who know the Torah will be judged by the Torah because they have no excuse for not knowing what was expected of them. But the people who are not in the Torah already have an evidence of Torah, or have a witness of Torah inside their heart. So they'll be judged according to what they felt in their heart that they knew was right. Like the law that was written in their heart, they'll be judged according to what they like people might not know, oh, I shouldn't eat. Or people might not know everything that the Torah commands, but they do have an evidence of right and wrong. And so if somebody who, like, in Africa or in Japan, if somebody grows up and they live their life never knowing the gospel, never even hearing it, but they feel convicted inside themselves when they lie or when they cheat or when they steal, and so they say, I'm not going to do that. And so they make deliberate, like, they deliberately choose, like, to do good, and they strive to do good, even though they don't have like, they don't know if they'll ever be held accountable for it. But Plato had a theory, and he wasn't a Christian, not even a little bit. He was secular. But Nietzsche, who's a nihilist, hated Plato's theory, which was good in itself. Like, Plato saw the human condition, and he looked at, like, these universal things that people do, and people have a universal like recognition of good and evil. And if that's the case, then good must be something that is not part of human standard, but is rather a standard that exists metaphysically outside of human
Transcends.
understanding.
Transcends.
And when I read about Plato's theory, good in itself, I had such an appreciation for it because that exactly aligned with what Paul's talking about here in Romans, where he says that people know good and evil because the law is written on their hearts. Like, people know when they're doing something wrong. It's up to the person to choose whether or not they're going to do evil or do good. And in that case, people would be doing good for the sake of good itself, or they would be doing evil because that's our heart's inclination. So if somebody chooses to do good for its own sake because it's right to do, because their conscience convicts them and they care about it, well, that's where Paul says, although not having the Torah, they are Torah to themselves, and they show the work of the Torah written in their hearts. And I'm reversing back to verse 12. For as many as sinned without Torah shall also perish without Torah, and as many as sinned in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. For not the hearers of the Torah are righteous in the sight of Elohim, but the doers of the Torah shall be declared right. So people who do good, and what is goodness? Like, what does Yahuwah say that goodness is, and what's the wisdom of Yahuwah? James says that the goodness of Yahuwah is caring for the widows and the orphans, and that the wisdom of Yahuwah is being long-suffering, being patient, being forgiven, and being willing to yield, or showing humility, things like that. So people on their own, for its own sake, are doing Torah simply because they want to do good and right. But I assimilated, but I was able to understand this because of chapter 13, the wisdom of Solomon, or it just helped me piece it together, because I always thought, I don't know what Yahuwah plans to do with people and their spirits, and for the people who, like, I am privileged in a way to have heard the gospel, and there are people who aren't, and they die, and they die in that, and I don't know how Yahuwah plans to deal with them, or does deal with them, but I know him, and I know that he's fair, and he's just, and he's merciful, and he's kind. So whatever way he deals with them, it must be fair. And so it's okay for me to not know it, but to understand that he would be fair in the way that he deals with it. But then I read chapter 13, and this just solidified this for it solidified what was said in Romans. I was able to compile it together. So I'm going to start reading it, and I'm going to start at chapter 1, or not, chapter 13, verse 1. It says, surely all men who are ignorant of Elohim are worthless by nature, and could not know him from the good which is seen, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the craftsman. Going back to Romans, when it says, for since the creation of the world, his invisible qualities have been made clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, both his everlasting power and mightiness, for them to be without excuse, because, although they knew Elohim, they did not esteem him as Elohim, nor give thanks, but became vain in their reasonings, and their undiscerning heart was darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools, and changed the esteem of the incorruptible Elohim into the likeness of an image of corruptible man, and of birds, and of four-footed beasts, and of reptiles. Therefore Elohim gave them up to the uncleanness in the lust of their hearts, to disrespect their bodies among themselves, who changed the truth of Elohim into the falsehood, and worshipped and served that which was created rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. So Anyway, going right back to this. So what does knowing mean in this context? And I think that it's not people who know that there's an Elohim and they turn away from him, or that they know Yahuwah himself or Elohim himself. They don't know him, but because his qualities are made manifest. Okay, this helps me explain it. His qualities are evidence, like the manifestation of what we see is evidence of an Elohim. So I'm going to read this through. So, surely all men who are ignorant of Elohim are worthless by nature, and could not know him from the good which is seen, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the craftsman. But supposed either fire, or wind, or the swift air, or the circle of the stars, or the raging water, or the lights of the Shamayim to be the mighty ones which govern the world. If they, being delighted with their loveliness, took them to be mighty ones, let them know how much better their add-on is. For the first author of loveliness has created them. But if they were astonished at their power and excellence, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. For the greatness and loveliness of the creation is seen in proportion to the maker of them. But yet for this they are the less to be blamed, for perhaps they stray seeking Elohim and desire to find him. For being accompanied with his works, they search him diligently and believe their sight, because that which is seen is lovely. However, neither are they to be pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could examine the world, how did they not sooner find out the add-on of such? But they are miserable, and their expectancy is in dead objects, who call them mighty ones, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver fashioned with skill, and likeness of beasts, or stone good for naught, the work of an aged hand. I'm going to keep going. Now, a carpenter that cuts timber, after he's hewed down a tree suited for the purpose, and taken off all the bark round about with skill, and has fashioned it elegantly, and made a vessel from it fit for the service of man's life, and after using the remains of his work to prepare his food, has filled himself, and taking the very waste among that which served no use, being a crooked piece of wood and full of knots, has carved it diligently, when he had none else to do, and formed it by the skill of his knowledge, and fashioned it into the image of a man, or made it like some lowly beast, laying it over with scarlet, and paint coloring it red, and covering every blemish with it. And when he has made a suitable space for it, positioned it on a wall, and fastened it with iron, for he prepared for it that it might not fall, knowing that it was unable to help itself, for it is an image and has need of help. And then he makes a prayer for his possessions, for his wife and children, and is not ashamed to speak to that which has no life. For health he calls upon that which is weak. For life he prays to that which is dead. For help he humbly pleads that which has the least means to help. And for a good journey he asks of that which cannot put a foot forward. And for gaining and getting, and for good success of his hands, asks ability to do from that which is most unable to do any deed. And what just like really made me think, and I wish I could surmise it eloquently, is that so people who are ignorant, like an atheist, for instance, like neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the craftsman. So they just like brush it off, and they don't care. They don't care who made it, why it's here, what it's doing. They don't take into account like why when you plant a seed, however you plant a seed, when it starts to grow, it always shoots up out of the soil and always faces the direction of the sun. Like, why do cells work the way that they do without command? Like I don't tell my heart to beat and I don't tell my cells to regenerate. So why does it do that? And who tells it to do so? And so, but like an atheist, like for instance, looks at that and he doesn't care. But then it makes a distinction here that neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the craftsman, but for another person, suppose the fire or the wind or the swift air or the circle of stars or the raging water or the stars to be the mighty ones which govern the world. Let them know how much better their add-on is. But if they were astonished at their power and excellence, for the greatness and loveliness of the creation is seen in proportion to the maker of them. And for this they are less to be blamed. For perhaps they stray seeking Elohim. So like somebody who doesn't have knowledge of the gospel would look at these things, look at the fire, look at the raging water, look at the stars in the sky, and they say, these must be like the mighty things, the mighty ones whom we're supposed to serve. Like they have some reference for the creation in the capacity that they know to have at that time. And I can see that in Hinduism and Shintoism and Native American religion, where the trees have a spirit and the water has a spirit and the stars have spirits and things like that. And in that regard, they're not wrong, because Enoch talks about the spirits of the wind and the spirits of the water and things like that. So they're not wrong, but these aren't the mighty ones that we are meant to serve. These are spirits, but they're not the add-on. So what the Shinto and the Hinduism and the Hinduism and the like Native American religions, like they stop at that. They don't give any more consideration to like what Solomon is putting on them right now is that if you think that the fire and the raging water is the mighty one here, then you knew enough to know that there are mighty ones. But why did you stop there? Like they're because these people are seeking something and they desire to find it. But Solomon says, but they're not to be pardoned for this because they stopped but if they knew so much, if you knew enough to know that these are mighty ones, then you should have been, if you had continued searching, if you had kept going, then you would have reached the conclusion that that there is something greater than these. And in a way, like I think that might be why humility, like this might be another time for humility to really, I mean, always humility, but like really another time for humility, because I just like imagined, like for somebody who recognizes all these things, the raging wind and the waters and the fire and the stars in the sky, and they thought all these things are so great, like who is responsible for this? Are these things responsible for themselves, or is there something even greater than this? And if they made an earnest prayer and they said, I don't know what's out there, I don't know who's out there, I don't know who you are, but if there is a God like that hears me right now, like show me evidence of yourself or something like that, or not evidence of yourself, but show me. I can imagine that Yahuwah, like in the way that we call upon Yahuwah, and you just get that sense of presence, like might not be a distinct answer to something that you asked, but you get that sense of like there's a presence inside of you.
Exactly.
For Romans, he says, for someone who does not have any knowledge of the Torah, they're a Torah unto themselves, and they'll be judged by what they know. And so maybe somebody will go throughout their life and they'll never know Yahuwah's name, and they'll never know the scriptures. Maybe they'll never know. But in an earnest prayer, would Yahuwah turn them away and say, "Ma, well, you don't have a..." I can imagine that Yahuwah would make camp in somebody who earnestly asked for him. And then at the end of time, if they held true to that and they just maintained the good for the sake of good, and for the sake, how does he say it? Seeking, for perhaps they stray, seeking Elohim and desire to find him. For those who desire to find him, we don't need to have all these details, because what Yahweh cares about is the desire to find him and the desire for goodness. And the people who are the doers of the Torah aren't the hearers of the Torah, but exactly what it is, the doers of the Torah. The people who do good are the ones who are the doers of the Torah, whether they know the Torah or not. And so what I assimilated with chapter 13 was just that I feel like 13 goes, I don't know if Paul read the Wisdom of Solomon and wrote what he wrote, or if it's just like perfect for me, for my assimilation. But basically, Solomon does not exempt people for stopping at the idea that the fire is the mighty one in and of itself, and that the raging wind is the mighty one in and of itself. Like, there must be a master of all these things, and it's on people to just be recognizing and seeking to recognize and desiring to find him. And that at the end of the day, like, that is what we're responsible for. And anyway, that was very impactful for me, and I don't know if that was impactful for you guys, but that was just very impactful for me, and I liked it a lot.
Thank you.
That seems to be one of the larger questions of so many people. And if I can find, it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like one of your things that you're dealing with here is, what do you do with the people that, where does Yahuwah's mercy end? Because not everybody can hear, not everybody's being given all these words. There are people out there. There are people in Japan. There are people in China. There are people that are not getting, children who never got the opportunity to receive the word like we're receiving it here. So what do you do with that? At what point does Yahweh's mercy end? How far does his mercy extend to those who don't know? Am I hearing you correctly? That's part of your question, is what do I do? And I know your heart is in Japan, and they are not given they're not given this messaging. But there are good people in Japan. What's Yahweh going to do with them? Is that kind of what you're saying to them? And I think what you're saying then, reading this, is a good person who, there are people who are maybe good and doing Torah, but when that good needs to move forward into a seeking, a looking upward to the Creator, and they can look up and they can see what's created, wonderful things, fire, wind, stars, sun, and they look up and they know that's good, and they stop because they see that, and they decide they're going to worship that as whatever their good is, and they fail to look beyond whatever created that to the Maker. And I think what you're trying to grasp here is Solomon saying, the heart, that person that is going to receive that mercy of Yahweh, that never received the word and the instructions of Yahweh, it's that person who can look beyond the stars and beyond the sun to the Creator, that he's going to reach back down to. Am I hearing you correctly when I say this? Am I describing it right?
Yeah.
You're young, and I don't mean that in any capacity except for that you are very mature for your age in this journey of enlightenment into Yahweh. And I think most of us have gone through these seasons. You're doing it early, but we all struggle with the idea that good people will not receive Yahweh just simply because they never heard the word. Is that part of what's going on inside your heart? Is you just don't like the idea that a man in Japan who does not ever get an opportunity to hear these words is going to be judged for that? Will he be judged when he's a good man who is looking up? Is that really the heart the essence from which you are coming here.
Mhm.
This is one of those things that many of us have dealt with. Many, I'm not saying everybody does, but many of us have dealt with this. I've had my season. I live in that too. It's even today, I live in that. One of the things that that has comforted me in this, and yet it's also hard because the truth is, I don't know. You don't know. And we're speculating. And like you said at the beginning, we are just going to have to trust Yahuwah that he knows. He knows, and he will not, under any circumstance, judge somebody who does not deserve to be judged. He will save to the utmost everybody to whom that salvation is due. And he will judge everybody to whom judgment is due. And he, just like we're reading in Second Esdras, just like we read in Job, just like we read, he knows, and we can't. And it's beyond our pay grade. We cannot know. And like he says to Esdras, Esdras, in some ways I can honor that you're asking, but you're asking too much. You're going too far. You're asking for information you will not receive in this time and in this age. I'll tell you a little, but you're never going to get to the answers you seek because it's beyond you for now. And I think that's the trust that we have to come to. I think that's what you stated in the beginning. And I think that's where your mom's at. That's where I'm at, that we just have to trust that Yahuwah will not judge the first innocent person, and he will not fail to save anybody who is innocent, and he will not fail to judge everybody who deserves judgment. I go back to your mom will know that I spent many years in this topic because there was a book, I can't even remember what it was called.
Chosen by
God.
God.
Chosen by God. But the essence of it is, as we read in scriptures, that there is an element throughout all scriptures that Yahuwah knows who is his. He knows from creation. If we go to Jubilees, I think it's the second chapter, he creates all beings on that first day, all beings. Now, not all beings are born and placed into their bodies. They are reserved somewhere in Sheol, something, and then born in their season, but they were created. Their spirit was created on that first day. And on that first day, Yahuwah knew the difference between those who are his and those who will not be his. He knew the difference between Pharaoh, that I know your heart has broken in the past over Romans 9, Pharaoh was made unto destruction, and that's so hard to embrace. But Yahuwah knew these differences from the very beginning, and there is an element of knowing. He knows his know him, and the two will connect. They will reach. Now, is there the one to whom it was never up to them? They were never going to reach there. They were never going to get past looking at the stars, looking at fire, and they would always turn themselves to them like Pharaoh did, and they were destined unto judgment? Maybe, and that's hard. I think that is a hard message. It's historically been hard for you. I remember watching you cry over the story of Pharaoh being judged years and years ago. Am I sharing back
To me
correctly?
for remembering my heart.
I think so. So I'm
Is this kind of the top? Is this what's driving you in this messaging?
It's just always been. I just happened to read chapter 13, and I just happened to pair it with what I thought. But yeah, I think about that from time to time, but most of the time I leave it on the back burner.
It's hard. It's hard messaging, and this messaging is a bit like the 364 versus 365. We're just going to have to let Yahweh work it out because it's beyond what I think we can get to. And I don't know what to do. I have thought recently, what do we have? We have the chosen race, Abraham, out of all the people. So what happened to all the people that went out everywhere else and were just born into all these pagan families and never had the chance? I grieve over that. I grieve over the child who just...
They're born into something, and they never got to see anything that was right or normal, or the truth.
So we just have to trust Yahweh in this. And if we spend too much time on it, like Ezra does, it makes Esther sick. It makes certain people sick. Job, it
Yeah.
will take us down paths that we're not meant to go. It's beyond us. So we just, at some point, just have to say, yeah, to you, Yahweh, to you. Here's what I'm called to do, and let me do it. Not to not have compassion upon those, and not to pray, but anyway. I don't know if I'm talking to what you were trying, what this meant to you or not.
No,
But
I wanted you to share your heart with me on that. So I wanted to share it. Um, I wanted to find the Sirach verse that goes with what you were saying, though, because there's a Sirach verse that says something like, "Do not tarry in matters that are beyond you, for many seeds are sown unto men." And what does it say? I want to
I
find it.
got here. Let me
Can you
show
just
you what's kind of nice
words?
about these. I'm going to be able to do a find here, I think. And Terry, you say?
Tarry.
I think I picked the word Terry. I might have seen it in that verse.
Well, I'm looking to see if I'm searching in this PDF document. Oh, here's Terry for nothing. But that's in the book of Johann. So it can't be that. It's probably not
Uh,
that, I should say.
I can look it up real quick.
Sirach, Ecclesiastes. That Well, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and start closing down the meeting. We can continue this we can continue talking, but let's go ahead and stop the recording after we pray here, and then we'll continue our meeting together, but so that others can move on with their day. Let's and we'll just close out our meeting with number 624 prayer, and I'll go ahead and lead it. Ready? Yahweh, may you barak and guard us all. Yahweh, may you make your face shine upon us all and show favor to us all. Yahweh, may you lift up your face upon us and give us shalom. Amen. Thank you for all that might have joined us or that might be listening to this, and may you be Baruch. All right, we're going to sign out. Maybe I can figure out how.